Hey, so my name's Eric, and I'm going to be talking about side channel attacks. So, what is a side channel attack? It's an unconventional type of attack. Exploits the implementation of the computer crypto system as opposed to the algorithms themselves. Um, so, the side channel information that we're going to gather is neither the plain text nor the ciphertext. Um, it's actually the additional output from the encryption machine and the operation. So side channel info can be timing information, power consumption, electromagnetics information, radiation, and even sound. So inside channel attacks, we observe and analyze information to extract keys and other sensitive information. And the time it takes to perform an attack varies depending on what type of attack it is. And here are some of the types of side channel attacks. This isn't all of them, but these are the main ones that I found some solid, papers and research in. So the first one was cache attack. Second one's electromagnetic attack, timing attack, and power monitoring or consumption attack. And this power monitoring has two um, attacks within it, which are a simple power analysis attack and differential power analysis attack. And I'll be talking about doing a brief overview of each of these here. So the first one is the cache attack, and this is based on the attacker being able to monitor cache that's accessed by the victim. So when we talk about cache, there's lots of types of cache, but in specifics, I'll be talking about L3 cache that's within the microprocessor in Intel. So the L3 cache, it holds, at least briefly, it holds almost all of the memory reads and write operations, and it is shared across all the users between virtualized machines, which makes it so vulnerable. So an example of a cache attack is a flush plus reload. There's a couple of others, but this one's the main one that people have ran tests with and figured out that is very good. And so flush and reload are operations, command line operations that you can run on the memory and the cache within your processor. And flush and reload are used to manipulate the cache to a known state, um, wait for a victim activity, and then examine what's changed. And based on that, you're able to either spy on the person, um, spy on their peripherals, spy on their network handling codes, and even steal some crypto keys. I'm not going to get into all the details of how the attack is set, but this is a brief overview. So countermeasures against it, design some cache leak free code. So there we would want secret independent instruction access and secret independent data access. Um, just so we don't have a cache leak, and so the attacker can't access the victim's cache while it's in use. And that's also the what cache allocation technology is used for. Intel has implemented this at a hardware level, um, so it's used to lock the cache and make it evictable um, to an attacker. The next countermeasure is page coloring, and this gives each user a color or an address bit, and this avoids cross-core user sharing of the address. So this also acts like a locking mechanism for the cache. Next is an electromagnetic attack. So here we're measuring electromagnetic radiation, which could provide information to be used for later signal analysis. So electromagnetic waves can be captured using an induction coil and a digital converter, which then can be synced with a megahertz and gigahertz clock. So what we're measuring here, as you can see in the picture here, is the electromagnetic radiation that comes off when we run either an RSA or an AES encryption algorithm. And here in the picture down here, you can see the purple lines are when the most electromagnetic radiation is coming off, and that's going to show us some information about the algorithms. And for example, the Intel Atom processor apparently will leak RSA and AES encryption keys at between 50 megahertz to 85 megahertz. And it's important to note that you have to have a pretty good understanding of electrical equipment and electrical engineering in general to even come close to performing this sort of attack. This isn't just something that you can kind of do um, without any sort of equipment or anything, but it is definitely possible and it is definitely a vulnerability. So some countermeasures. There's no perfect solution, and we can only make it harder to generate this attack. And first is a Faraday cage, which you can see pictured here at a larger scale. Um, there's actually Faraday cages that uh, are built for either transistors or microprocessors that reduce signal, electromagnetic signals, and they can also introduce noise signal. And also this one, the second one is a general sort of countermeasure, randomization of the encryption implementation. This helps not only in electromagnetic attacks, but also in timing attacks and other sort of attacks that measure, the actual implementation of these encryption algorithms. The next is a timing attack. So here we analyze the time taken to execute an encryption algorithm. A brief overview of the cryptanalysis of the Diffie-Hellman and RSA operation. An attack on that would be, so we're trying to find R here. Well, we're actually trying to find X, which is a secret key, but we use this function here to, do the RSA operation. So N is public, Y can be eavesdropped, and then the attacker wants to find X, which is the exponent here. And the attack must compute Y to the power of X mod N for several values of Y, where Y, N, and the computation time for this operations are known to the attacker, and X stays the same. And then later on, we use statistical methods, and that can lead to recovering the actual private key. And using interactive protocol eavesdropping, the attacker could obtain a message and the time taken to respond to each Y. And this assumes that the attacker knows the design of the target system. So some general countermeasures is to add delays to the encryption algorithms, which is not practical, but it also affects the system and optimization attempts, especially if you're trying to get things to run faster. Adding delays is not very not practical. And the second one is time equalization. So it's a similar setting a similar time for both multiplication and exponentiation and other operations. So here, when we run a multiplication and exponentiation, we can set it to always execute both, but silently ignore the unnecessary operation, which will give us an equal time for whatever operation we're running. So an SPA attack is a type of power analysis attack. It's a simple power analysis attack, and here we're looking at power consumption while an encryption algorithm and operation is taking place. So the power consumed varies depending on processor instruction performed, aka we can look at the DS rounds or RSA operations, and we can identify those based on the power consumption that we can see. So in RSA, SPA can view differences between the multiplication, the squaring, and exponentiation operations, and in DES, the SPA can see the differences between permutations and those left shifts that we learned about. And SPA can reveal a sequence of instructions executed, and this can be used to break crypto implementations where the execution path depends on the data being processed, aka key scheduling and permutations. So DPA attacks are it's a step up from the SPAs. These are differential power analysis attacks. So not just visual, but also adding that layer of statistical analysis and error correction statistical methods to obtain the information. So general implementation against an DES. So the attacker observes n number of encryption operations, captures power traces containing a k amount of samples for each. Later, the attacker records ciphertexts. So he records ciphertext. Power consumption measurement plus statistical methods are used to determine whether a key block guess k is correct based on the spikes of differential trace. So this gets a bit complicated, and it was hard to follow the actual math behind it. So this is just a brief overview. And then using this method, the attacker can actually go after the triple DES by grabbing the first key from the outer DS operations and then using the K to decrypt it. And then you can pair this up with known plaintext or known ciphertext attacks, and the keys can be found doing that. Some countermeasures. Again, these are just general countermeasures for SPA and DPA. Power consumption balancing. Even out power consumption between operations and keep power independent of input and key bits. Signal size reduction, noise addition, physical shielding. These are some that we've already mentioned for other types of attacks. Algorithm design modification we've mentioned, but specific to SPA and DPA, we want a non-linear key update procedure, and we want increased use of exponent and modification in public key schemes. So my observations here, these attacks are definitely very unconventional, but apparently, based on the research that I saw, they're very real, and they're very possible, especially with if you have the equipment and if you have the knowledge. And like I mentioned here, you do have to have extensive knowledge of electrical engineering concepts and the actual crypto systems and algorithms. Another observation that I saw, and it was mentioned in the research paper, that not much money is needed to purchase some equipment to run these attacks. I saw one person demo using a $400 oscilloscope and Arduino, and they were able to create something that would eventually lead to breaking the RSA algorithm. And I also didn't know how much could be exploited at such a deep level, such as GPUs, CPUs, and cache, and even virtual environments. I had no idea that it got that deep. So yeah, let me know. I have some links here. Let me know if you have any questions. So thanks for watching.